Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. As part of the systems concept series, in this video we are going to discuss the microservice architecture. We will be discussing what is microservice architecture, and we will be discussing the advantages of using microservice architecture and also the drawbacks of using it. So stay tuned. In a non-microservice architecture, which is also known as the monolithic architecture, we have all the functionalities of the application running from a single application service. This doesn't need to be a single server. This can have the multiple servers, and also it can have the multiple databases which are replicated or sharded. But on a whole, all the functionality comes from a single code base. Taking the classic example of the e-commerce, we will see how the same application will look in microservice architecture. In a typical microservice architecture, each microservice is a single business unit which contains the logic of all the services of that particular unit. You can see here the example of the e-commerce. We have the user service, shipping service, order service, and product service as independent microservices. So each of them have a separate application server and a database server running for each of the microservice. And using a gateway or a router, the requests from the client are routed to the respective microservices. In order to understand more, we will jump into the advantages and also we will see the drawbacks, so we will better understand the differences between the monolithic and microservice architecture. Coming to the advantages, the first important advantage is we can have the parallel development going on. For the same example of the e-commerce, we can have separate teams for each of our services. For the user service, we will have one team. For the product service, we have other team, and so on. And in case the development team is not sufficient, we can outsource or take help from some of the other developers from outside. As we have the separate microservices for each of the functionality, we will not have much dependency and it will be easy for others to develop the product. And the second biggest advantage of the microservice is they are independently deployable. If we take the same example of the e-commerce, in case we have the code changes in user microservice, we will be deploying only the user microservice without touching any of the other microservices. And the next advantage is you can use different tech stacks for each of the microservices. As our microservices communicate only through the network calls, depending on that particular microservice requirements and also depending on the skill set of the development team, you can choose the tech stacks differently for different microservices. And the next advantage is they are easy and flexible to scale. So if we have more traffic coming onto the product service and if we want to scale out that particular service, we can scale only the product service by bringing in more resources without changing any other microservices. And the next advantage is easy to onboard the new developers. If someone is coming as a new developer in the team, they need not know the whole application. If they get the knowledge on the microservice part which they are working on, that will be enough. And the final advantage what we have is no single point of failure. For example, if we have some runtime bug in the shipping service which is causing the server crashes, only the shipping service microservice will be affected and remaining all other microservices should be functioned as expected. So now we will move on to the drawbacks. The first one is design complexity. It's not very easy to design a microservice based application. We have to consider a lot of scalable factors and development factors for that, which requires very experienced and skilled architects to do that. And the next drawback is it increases the maintenance. As we are maintaining the multiple microservices, the number of resources increase and the number of deployments increase and the dev operations on them increase, and all this leads to the maintainability and the cost increase as compared to the monolithic architecture. And the next disadvantage is network latency between the microservices. As all the microservices work independently, they have to communicate using the network calls, and these network calls can lead to some latency, which will in turn affect overall response time. And the next disadvantage comes when you have a very small team. If you have a very small team, the splitting of more microservices will increase the complexity and also the workload in the team. So it is better to go with the monolithic architecture when you have the smaller team. That's all the drawbacks what we have. By comparing the advantages and the drawbacks, you can choose whether you should be going for the microservice based architecture or you want to stick to the monolithic architecture. And that's all for this video, guys. If you like the content, please do like and subscribe to our channel. We will try to bring more programming and design stuff for you guys, so please subscribe to our channel.